sato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject of my today's talk is the power of the Chicago Addresses. Okay. Swami Vivekananda came to this country in the year of 1893 to attend the power, the Swami Vivekananda came to this country to attend the Parliament of Religions in Chicago in the year 1893. It was a World Parliament of Religions, was held as a part of Chicago World's Fair to commemorate the 400th anniversary of Columbus's voyage and discovery of America. This great Columbian exposition was so impressive that at that time the population of this country was 60 million and at least 20 million people actually visited that fair. So this Parliament of Religion was a part of that great Columbian exposition. Great Columbian exposition was held on the southern side of Chicago, which is now occupied probably mostly the University of Chicago and Industrial Museum and such other places. But Parliament of Religion was held in Art Institute, Chicago Art Institute. It is still there in a sense that most of the buildings of the Great Columbian Exposition was temporary type. Only few buildings, 1 or 2 or 3 were built for the permanent purposes. And this Art Institute's building was meant to be permanent. So in that way, it still exists. Of course, there are some modifications that we see, but we can figure out where the Parliament of Religion was held. It was a big area, that means inside about 6,000, 7,000 people could be accommodated. And the Parliament ran from 11 to 27th September. It was a sort of auxiliary building known as the Art Institute of Chicago. Exact location is in the Grant Park, which is by the side of the Lake Michigan, that means shore of Lake Michigan. Now it looks inside the city in the downtown, but at that time it was almost near the shore of that lake. And this event marked the first formal gathering of representatives of Eastern and Western spiritual traditions. Till then, in the world, there was no such an event where all the representatives of different religions could be gathered in one place on the one platform. So it was a great adventure or venture for the organizers, and it was very successful. 41 religious groups from different nations participated in this event. So you can imagine that it was really a very huge affair. I can show you how actually it looks. This is actually the Art Institute where it was held. This is the art institute at the time when Swami Vivekananda actually was there and the Parliament of Religion was held. More or less it is like that, but definitely the surrounding areas are now built up. That means many other buildings have come up and the road is not that empty and it is full of traffic. Now the object of the Parliament of Religion, they have noted in many places there are 10 main objectives, but I shall just recount a few of them. One is that to bring together in conference for the first time in history the leading representatives of the great historic religions of the world. That was one of the objectives. Now the second was to show to men in the most impressive way what and how many important truths the various religions hold and teach in common. That means they try to figure out or just to make presentation to the public that there are many truths which are common to all religions. And that was also another purpose of this Parliament of Religion. Then to promote and deepen the spirit of human brotherhood among religious men of diverse faiths through friendly conference and mutual good understanding, while not seeking to foster the temper of indifferentism and not striving to achieve any formal and outward unity. They did not have any goal that all the religions will come together and form one religion, or one religion will establish to be the best religion. Though some of the representatives tried to do that, but still it was not the purpose of the organizer to do that. But definitely they wanted to share the knowledge of each religion in a large way. In this way, there are some other aspects also there. To inquire what light each religion has afforded or may afford to other religions in the world. So some knowledge of other religion can be shared by another religion. In that way also, that was the purpose of this Parliament. Then to bring the nations of the earth into a more friendly fellowship in the hope of securing permanent international peace. That was the last objective that I find in the list. But it is still, we are hoping that it will come true. Now, why we are celebrating this Parliament of Religion and in the context of Swami Vivekananda's speech? That is very important, because to us, that means those who are admirers of Swami Vivekananda, those who aspire for the unity or respect for each other's religion, and also those who want to know what we can learn from other religions, or those who want to practice something which can really bring us to a spiritual realization. For them, Swami Vivekananda is really very important. And we see that after the Parliament of Religion, there are many important speakers, and Swami Vivekananda actually stands out. In a sense, that means he has been followed and being followed. He has been followed and he is being followed, and probably he will be followed for a long time because of his lasting contribution. And that actually, at one place, I shall try to illustrate with one example. Now, a little bit of that Parliament of Religion. 11 September 1893, it was Monday, and that was the first session of the Parliament which was held. The event began at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the participants of the Parliament marched into the hall hand in hand. That is probably a sort of show, or that is the way of fraternity that impressed the audience, and also they felt that is the way that they should go and sit into the dais. It was accompanied by the striking of the Colombian Liberty Bell, which tolled 10 times as a symbolic honor towards the participating religions. These religions are Buddhism, Christianity, Confucianism, Hinduism, Islam, Jainism, Judaism, Shintoism, Taoism, and Zoroastrianism. So these are the 10 main religions which were represented. Of course, others were also there. And this great Colombian Liberty Bell was rung. And this Colombian Liberty Bell, a little bit information I had gathered, probably it will be interesting for you to know. It is not the Liberty Bell that actually we have in Philadelphia. It doesn't ring actually. That means it is broken, so it cannot be done. So they made a special bell on this occasion. And how was it made? It says that the plan of such a bell was conceived by Mr. William McDowell of New Jersey. And it was he who carried it into execution. Correspondence was entered into an extensive scale, and contributions for the bell came from hundreds and thousands of sources. And it was cast in time to be one of the features of the exposition, occupying a prominent place on the plaza just west of the such and such building and being run at different notable occasions. And one of the most interesting part is this: unique gifts contributed to make the composition of the new Liberty Bell. That means what went into the manufacture of that bell that is being described. The keys of Jefferson's Davis's house, pike heads used by John Brown at Harper's Ferry. Probably those who are students of history of America will immediately figure out what these things mean. Then John C. Calhoun's silver spoon, Lucretia Mott's silver fruit knife, Simon Bolivar's watch chain, hinges from the door of Abraham Lincoln's house at Springfield, George Washington's serving chain, Thomas Jefferson's copper kettle, and Mrs. Parnell's earrings and Whittier's pen are all among the articles melted to make the bell. So you can imagine how actually a sort of all the important personalities who have contributed to the United States history, and their belongings have gone into the manufacture of that bell. And the bell was rung 10 times, and later on it was first sounded on the occasion of opening of the World's Congress of Religions. Though the bell was transported, it was very heavy. I shall tell you, the bell is 7 feet in height and weighs 13,000 pounds. So it is a huge bell. So the point is that it was first rung at the World's Parliament of Religion, and then on other occasions of the Columbian Exposition it was used. Now probably you will be interested to know what is the fate of this bell. After this exposition, the bell was taken in for viewing in different cities and places. It was, that means naturally people wanted to see that, and ultimately it got lost. That means there is no trace of that at present. And it is believed that it went to Russia and it was melted down. Now let us see. On the first day, the exposition started, Parliament of Religion started, and there were, in the first session, there were 18 speakers. Now coming to Swami Vivekananda, those who have read about Swami Vivekananda, you will remember that on the, he was present there, and he was requested by the, what is called the announcer, that means John Barrows or Mr. Money. So they are requesting him that please come and speak. So he was actually refusing. Several times actually he refused to come to the podium. And ultimately we see that amongst the, there are several speakers, and he came actually as a 15th speaker. Some of the important speakers who actually preceded him was, some of the name you may be remembering, P.C. Mazumdar, who represented Brahmo Samaj. You will find a reference of him in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, that means in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. He was a representative of Brahmo Samaj and was as good as Keshav Chandra Sen in representing Brahmo religion. So here he represented Brahmo Samaj in that parliament of religion. Then there are Veerchand Gandhi, who actually represented Jainism. Then there is C.N. Chakraborty, a theosophist. And there are, of course, other, what is called representative of other religions. And then ultimately, at that time, the 15th speaker was Swami Vivekananda. And after him, the one Parsi lady, Jane Sorabji, spoke, and also another representative of Brahmo Samaj, B.B. Nagarkar, spoke. Now, as you know, Swami Vivekananda became famous by his first few words, that means sisters and brothers of America. And there is something that needs to be told about those few words. It is not a quote. It is just what is called address. That means these few words are just an address, but it still stands the most popular, what is called composition of words, if you can say, of Swami Vivekananda even today. That means there are systematic research about which what is called which quotation, if you say it, is most popular even today. So the research shows that they have marked out, that means there are 10 such quotations of Swami Vivekananda. Some of them, of course, you know, but this one actually stands out. That means what he has uttered at that time actually is still ringing, you can say. And it's still ringing in a sense that Swami Vivekananda is not complete without saying this a few words, sisters and brothers of America. So there are certain reasons for that, that of course Swami Vivekananda himself has said, and also I shall tell you that how actually it has affected the, what is called the listeners. So let me first share with you what Swami Vivekananda, what are the other few well-known quotations of Swami Vivekananda. Second is that arise, awake and stop not till the goal is reached. That is considered to be the second most popular quote of Swami Vivekananda according to the research. Then third is that, "O India, forget not." Probably it is not very relevant to you in a sense, that means those who have read Swami Vivekananda's complete works, and those who are mostly associated with Swami Vivekananda and India, they will remember that. We have read this paragraph of Swami Vivekananda in our school days. It was a part of our textbook. So it is originally in Bengali. He did not speak it, but he wrote it. And it is called Swadesh Mantra. That means the mantra of patriotism. So in that way, actually, that had inspired many, many Indian independent freedom fighters in the struggle of freedom of India. Then fourth is that that is also a part of a poem. The poem originally was in Bengali, and Sokhar Proti as it is called. The Bengali version is in 2 lines. বহুরূপে সম্মুখে তোমার ছাড়ি কথা খুঁজিছ ঈশ্বর, জীবে প্রেম করে যেই জন সেই জন সেবিছে ঈশ্বর. The translation will be like this. It is translated as to a friend. These are his manifold forms before thee, rejecting them, where seekest thou for God? Who loves all beings without distinction, he indeed is worshipping best is God. So his contribution to our to us is that he asked us, especially addressed in India, that means you should worship poor people as God. That is the message in short that he has expressed in this poem. Then there are of course other sayings that are there. So in that way, the point is that sisters and brothers of America is the most popular saying of Swami Vivekananda. So what he has to say about that will be interesting to know. So he says in this way, he wrote one letter to his disciple. His name was Alasinga Perumal. He was one of the very ardent supporter of Swami Vivekananda, when he was completely unknown, that means he was traveling as an itinerant monk in southern part of India. And he knew, or he felt, that he is the right person, not only to represent India, but also he thought that he is the most powerful person to represent Hinduism, probably anywhere. So in that way, he remained ardent follower of Swami Vivekananda as long as he lived. And they used to, that means Swami Vivekananda, after coming to this country, used to correspond with him very regularly. And Swami Vivekananda himself was very much astonished that after his speech, he was embraced by this country as the best speaker in the parliamentary religion, and without his own effort, actually, he became a celebrity. So that actually how he became, and what is how actually he looked at, he described in a letter to Alasinga Perumal. So he said, I address the assembly as sisters and brothers of America. A deafening applause of 2 minutes followed, and then I proceeded, and when it was finished, I sat down almost exhausted with emotion. The next day, all the papers announced that my speech was the hit of the day, and I became known to the whole of America. Truly, has it been said by the great commentator Sridhar. Sridhar was just like Shankaracharya was a commentator of scriptures. So in the eulogy of Sri Krishna has said, Mukam karati vachalam pongum langhayate girim. That means, who maketh the dumb a fluent speaker. So that he remembered, and his what is called presentation actually proves that saying. His name be praised. From that day I became a celebrity, and the day I read my paper on Hinduism, the hall was packed as it had never been before. I quote to you from one of the papers. Ladies, ladies, ladies packing every place, filling every corner. They patiently waited and waited while the papers that separated them from Vivekananda were read, etc. So this is a description of a newspaper which reported when Swami Vivekananda spoke, what had happened. You would be astonished if I sent over to you the newspaper cuttings, but you already know that I am a hater of a celebrity. Suffice it to say that whenever I went on the platform, a deafening applause would be raised for me. Nearly all the papers paid high tributes to me, and even the most bigoted had to admit that this man, with his handsome face and magnetic presence, this is a quote, magnetic presence and wonderful oratory, is the most prominent figure in the parliament. Sufficient for you to know that never before did an Oriental make such an impression on American society. So this is Swami Vivekananda's assessment, or his own what is called remark about himself, what he had achieved in the parliament religion. Later on, actually, he did this. Now there was another quote which Swami Vivekananda shared with Sister Nivedita. The point is that what was he and what was the condition of himself. So he has assessed this in this way. That means we can imagine what power actually worked through him at that moment that he himself describes. So this is from a letter to Sister Nivedita. He said, in my first speech in this country in Chicago, I addressed that audience as sisters and brothers of America. And you know that they all rose to their feet. You may wonder what made them do this. You may wonder if I had some strange power. Let me tell you that I did have a power, and this is it. Never once in my life did I allow myself to have even one sexual thought. I trained my mind, my thinking, and the powers that man usually uses along that line I put into a higher channel. and it developed a force so strong that nothing would resist it. So this is Swami Vivekananda's his own description how he actually had that power within himself. And that power is still working. As you know, we are celebrating this Sisters and Brothers of America after 125 years. Now the point is that what are the reaction? We have the title of this talk is Addresses. So Swami Vivekananda has several other talks also. And one of them was Hinduism that I just mentioned here. Swami Vivekananda himself also has mentioned. That means when it was a paper. I do not know whether he had made that paper to be read on what occasion, but it was a written paper. So that paper was presented, and it so happened that one American young man, I shall tell you his name later on, he was just as a curious person, as a visitor. He came to the Great Columbian Exposition. Naturally, you know, those who visit fairs, we go to the State Fair and other places, we go from stall to stall, somewhere we stand, somewhere we hear, somewhere we, what is called, see things, and in that way we spend our time. So he did that. He knew about the parliament religion, so he was curious, young man, 21 years old. So he saw the parliament, what is called this Great Columbian Exposition, the fair portion, that means which was held in the southern part of Chicago. And then he himself was a little bit spiritually minded, religious minded. That means he was a student of religion or philosophy, you can say. In that capacity, actually, he got interested into the parliament of religion. Then it so happened that when this paper was being read, that means this Hinduism paper being read, actually he was present there, just like a common member of the audience. And that actually gave him some insight, which actually changed his life. Not only changed his life, it made him one of the most well-known philosophers of this country. His name is William Ernest Hocking. So he was at that time just a student studying probably in the undergraduate school and came to the parliament region, and in that way he heard him. So his observation, it is not actually available in the Reminiscences of Swami Vivekananda, which is a collection of different persons who had met Swami Vivekananda, but on this particular occasion, this person was present. So he is the first person, he did not know also Swami Vivekananda. In that way, actually, the most unknown circumstances, what is called most unexpected circumstances, in that way, actually, we can look to this situation. And ultimately, how actually it affected this person, that is most important to know. So he says, it is actually quoted in the Mary Lieber's New Discoveries in the volume 1. We all carry with us, that means Mr. Hocking is saying, we all carry about with us unsolved problems of adjustment to this many-angled world. Without formulating questions, we are living quest unless by some rare chance our philosophy of life is entirely settled. So this person had some problem in his mind about philosophy, student of philosophy, so naturally probably agnosticism, whether God exists or not, whether the Bible is true and what has been said and what has been taught, all these things actually, there's a confusion in his mind that we see. And to meet some person may solve a quest wholly without his knowledge. It may be simply mode of being that brings the release. That means suddenly, actually, by meeting this person or listening to this person, actually, the conclusion came to him. This was in some measure the story of my first encounter with Swami Vivekananda. Though I was only one of the immense audience, as I told you that he was just an ordinary member of the audience, I was a casual visitor at the Chicago World's Fair, just turning 20, interested in a dozen exhibits on the Midway. Midway is the place, that means that is still there. We have Midway Airport now. That area was specially meant for different types of I believe that it was meant for some cultural, mostly cultural things were there. But aside from all this, I had a quietly rankling problem of my own. Though he was a visitor, but in his heart he has some problem, unresolved issues that was actually bothering him for a long time. I had been reading Herbert Spencer, all I could get of his works. I was convinced by him, but it was somehow a vital injury to think of man as of the animals. Birth, growth, mating, death, and nothing more. Finish. I had my religion, Methodism, an experience of conversion with a strange enlightenment, which gave me 3 days of what felt like a new vision of things, strangely lifted up. That means though he believed, he studied Spencer, but he was not satisfied because Spencer's theory does not have any mystical, does not believe in any mystical experience. But because he was a follower of Methodism, so he had some, what is called some sort of experience, but he was not sure about that. That is the point. Spencer had explained that all way as an emotional flurry. The world must be faced with a steady, objective eye. The Christian cosmology was fancy. So that was so he was in the two-way, his mind was in confusion. And that means this side Methodism, some experience, at the same time philosopher, Spencer is saying this. So in that way he was very much unsettled in mind. But still, Christianity was not the only religion. There were to be speakers from other traditions at the Parliament of Regents. They might have some insight that would relieve the tension. I would go for an hour and listen. I did not know the program. It happened to be Vivekananda's period. He spoke not as arguing from a tradition or from a book, but as from an experience and certitude of his own. I do not recall the steps of his address, but there is a passage toward the end in which I can still hear the ring of his voice and feel the silence of the crowd, almost as if shocked. The audience was well mixed, but could be taken as one in assuming that there had been a fall of man resulting in the state of original sin, such that all men have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But what is the speaker saying? I hear his emphatic rebuke. Call men sinners. It is a sin to call men sinners. So this word, these few words actually struck him, and that changed his life. Through the silence, I felt something like a gasp running through the hall as the audience waited for the affirmation which must follow this blow. What his following words were, I cannot recall with the same verbal clarity. They carried the message that in all men there is the divine essence, undivided, and eternal reality is one. And that one which is Brahman constitutes the central being of each one of us. So just see just few words, and that unsuspecting unknown person actually that brought this, what is called, if we call it illumination or the spark of knowledge in a moment. For me, this doctrine was a startling departure from anything which my scientific psychology could then recognize. One must live with these ideas and consider how one's inner experience could entertain them. But what I could feel and understand was that this man was speaking from what he knew, not from what he had been told. He was well aware of the books, but he was more immediately aware of his own experience and his own status in the world. And what he said would have to be taken into account in any final worldview. I began to realize that Spencer could not be allowed the last word. And furthermore, that this religious experience of mine, which Spencer would dismiss as a psychological flurry, was very akin to the grounds of Vivekananda's own certitude. So from this unknown person's experience, you can imagine how actually Swami Vivekananda's power works. And it is still working. Swami Vivekananda himself has said that I work through my words or my what is called my writings, if you call it now, because his words we cannot hear now, and there are a lot of effort to find out a few of his lectures, recorded lectures, but it has still it is not discovered. But the point is that he lives through his words. That means if you read, actually you will feel the spirit that he has left for us. Now, as you see that this Professor Hawking, and he was impressed by this saying. So this, let me repeat a little bit of that, what was the exact wording that has been recorded. So he says, "Here, ye children of immortal bliss, even ye that reside in higher spheres, I have found in Ancient One, who is beyond all darkness, all illusion. Knowing him alone, you shall be saved from death over again." Then he says, "Children of immortal bliss, what a sweet, what a hopeful name. Allow me to call you brethren by that sweet name, heirs of immortal bliss. Yea, the Hindu refuses to call you sinners. Ye are the children of God, the sharers of immortal bliss, holy and perfect beings. Ye divinities on earth, sinners, it is a sin to call a man so. It is a standing libel on human nature." This quotation I am saying because this is the most popular saying of Swami Vivekananda in this country. This is the best saying that he has said or left for the people of this country. We in India, we know that God is residing in our heart. From the childhood we have been taught in that way, though we cannot see. But definitely we know that we have this divine spark inside. The only thing that we do not discover it or experience it. So all our spiritual practices are meant for that. So we are just struggling in that way. Some of us are successful, some of us has been successful, some of us will be successful, but most of us are struggling. So the notion that we are spark of divinity is quite common in Hinduism. It is probably in Buddhism also. But in this country, that means those who are followers of Christianity or those who are followers of so-called Christianity have never heard or never believed that this can be true. So this is considered to be the best saying of Swami Vivekananda or the message that he has left for this country. That is my contention. Then he continued, "Come up, O lions, and shake off the delusion that you are sheep. You are souls immortal, spirits free, blessed and eternal. Ye are not matter, ye are not bodies, matter is your servant, not you the servant of matter." These are the sayings that Swami Vivekananda. There are some history behind this also. The history is like this: when he spoke, that means when he read this paper of Hinduism, before him there was a representative of Christianity. His name was Reverend Cook. He happened to be a friend of Keshav Chandra Sen. So he said that, he said in this way, that means his theme, what I remember is this, that means he said that without what is called accepting Jesus, we sinners, we shall not be, we shall not get salvation. That was the main theme. And Swami Vivekananda actually replied to that, retorted to that by saying this. That has been said in this way. So this is the way that Swami Vivekananda is still living through his words that we see. And if you check those who have read Swami Vivekananda and serious about Swami Vivekananda, they will say, yes, this is, I have actually checked with good students. That means if you can, those who have read Swami Vivekananda, then what do you think about Swami Vivekananda? What is his best quote? So I have found that, yes, they say that this is the best quote for them. That is my contention. Well, let me show you a few relevant pictures of the Parliament of Brilliance. This is the picture of the what is called platform where Swami Vivekananda spoke. In the center you can see there is the platform, and Swami Vivekananda, some people say this is the Swami Vivekananda, but it is not really certain. Then this is a picture, the representative of Eastern religion. First is this, that means this is Veer Chand Gandhi. He is also he represented well Jainism. And this is Dharmapal, that means he represents Buddhism. He was from Sri Lanka. Then Swami Vivekananda. And this gentleman, I do not remember. And this is Veer Chand Gandhi, this is Dharmapal, this is Swami Vivekananda, and these are the two other. This is Nagarkar, and this is another gentleman who represented different religions. This is one of the flyers, you can say, or souvenir of Parliament of Religions. And this, you know, in 1993, there was a Parliament religion which is still running. That means Parliament religion was divided. After 1893, there was no occasion of that type of meeting, conference. So it was decided by the followers of Swami Vivekananda, especially in the Chicago area, and some of them are very enthusiastic, and ultimately they found that it will be feasible to have another Parliament religion on the occasion of the centenary of this Parliament religion. So it was held in 1993. Dalai Lama and other big representatives of different religions were there. Later on, they requested the city to name one street in the relevant street in the name of Parliament, in the name of Swami Vivekananda. So actually, a small street was named after him, honorary Swami Vivekananda. I hope in what is called in future there will be the Lakeshore Drive. You know, that is the longest road which connects this what is called Art Institute to the World Fair ground, which is a long road. Probably it was actually suggested, but it was not really passed to the corporation or whatever it may be. But that would be most relevant road which can be named after him. And also there was a statue of Swami Vivekananda that was proposed to be installed there. Statue was built, but the city government actually refused to get it installed in the Grand Park. Because they said that if you install, then other representative of other religion also will say that we should have our statues also. So it will be a mess at that time. So whatever it may be, it did not happen. But this small street has been named after Swami Vivekananda in Chicago, in the downtown area. And this is something interesting. That means one craftsman, he actually, these are the steps that leads to the art institute. So he actually made this light words in light bulbs or whatever it may be, and which goes to the Parliament, which goes to the Art Institute. The whole talk that Sisters and Brothers of America, the whole lecture actually, line by line, it is lighted in that way. It is a novel way of what is called showing Swami Vivekananda's talk. These are, of course, I told you verbally. These are the speakers. And this is the William Ernest Hocking, about whom actually I told you. He became a very well known. He was not exactly contemporary of William James, but he was probably a sort of student of William James also. That means next generation. So in that way, his life, that means problem of his life was solved. The question that had bothered him, and ultimately he understood the inner meaning of human being. And this is actually, I already read to you what he had said. All right. Now this is a a little bit that I have to share with you about Parliament religion, but I would like to end my talk with a few paragraphs from our revered President Maharaj. We had the occasion of celebrating this 125th anniversary of Parliament religion yesterday, and the first Unitarian Church in Oakland, that means Berkeley, Oakland, and it was organized by Vedanta Society of Berkeley. And on that occasion, our revered President Maharaj, the present President Maharaj, who is the head of our order, that means of Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission, he had sent one message. So a small, it is a 2-page long. I had the occasion of reading that, but it will be very relevant if I quote a few paragraphs from that. Swami Vivekananda presented his master's teachings in a modern context. He was acclaimed all over USA as the greatest speaker at the Parliament of Religions, where he declared, "If the Parliament of Religions has shown anything to the world, it is this. It has proved to the world that holiness, purity, and charity are not the exclusive possessions of any church in the world, and that every system has produced men and women of the most exalted character. In the face of this evidence, if anybody dreams of the exclusive survival of his own religion and the destruction of the others, I pity him from the bottom of my heart and point out to him that upon the banner of every religion will soon be written, in spite of resistance, help and not fight, assimilation and not destruction, harmony and peace and not dissension." Then, of course, he says, "The philosophical ideas of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda are expressions of their universal spiritual vision. Every spiritual aspirant has been given the utmost freedom to take up any one path to reach the goal." In the words of Swamiji, this is another quote of Swami Vivekananda, very well-known quote. "Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, by one or more or all these, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details." So in this way, Swamiji concludes, "I pray to the Lord Almighty to lead us forward in our voyage towards peace, prosperity, and truth." Swami Smaranananda, President of the Ramakrishna Math and Mission. This was just very recent one. He sent this letter on September 6th only. So I thank you very much for your patience, and it was a great occasion to remember Swami Vivekananda's speeches on the Parliament, what he had given at the Parliament region. This book is available. That means it is a small booklet that is available, and it is very cheap also. So you can read this and get inspired by Swami Vivekananda's words. Thank you.